Senator Norby FEATURE was born into a family that had a history in politics. Norby moved home in 1995 from the University of Lafayette to help run his brother's re-election campaign when his brother decided that he was no longer going to run. Norby took a year off to figure out who he was, bartended, and decided to go to Nicholls State University.
That was as big of a life-changing event for me as anything that has ever happened. Because the day after he decided not to run, and when qualifying for the Senate closed, and he was no longer going to be the senator, it was going to be the first time in my life, and I was 20. It's the first time in my life that I was not going to be Senator Chaubert's son or brother.
Norby was enjoying his time in college and his anonymity from politics when he was asked to represent Al Gore in a speech forum debating the best presidential candidate in the 2000 presidential election. Though he was not a huge Al Gore fan, Norby played the part and flawlessly delivered a closing argument explaining the pros of having Al Gore as a president.
Dr. Antizzo and the two heads of the speech department at the time came up out and they were like, you blew that speech out of the water. Like, how long did you prep for that? I said, I didn't prep at all for that. Really? I just went up there and kind of did it. He's like, we noticed you didn't have any notes and you just spoke. And I was like, yeah. And Antizzo, debating me daily in government class, wasn't surprised at that, but it was funny. He's like, I didn't agree with anything you said. He says, but you blew Tucci out of the water.
After giving the speech, it was the first time in years that Norby had acknowledged that his family had ever been in politics.
I'm never going to forget this as long as I live. Like, I looked up at the sky and I said, that was for you. And it was the first time that, like, in 4 years or 5 years, I had even acknowledged that we had been in politics or government. It's almost like I had turned my back on that chapter of my life. But that was when I realized that this is what I should be doing in some way. More than anything, it was a moment of self-realization that, hey, not only can you do this, but you're good at it.
After graduating from Nicholls, Norby had planned to go to law school. Instead, he landed a job working on Mary Landrieu's re-election campaign. It was his first time being a part of politics for years, and he says that it felt great to be back on his own accord. Norby also learned that campaigning was very enjoyable for him.
Now being someone who was working in a major campaign capacity, I got a lot of respect for just being me and not being somebody's son or brother.
After the campaign was over, Norby realized he was actually not a liberal, but rather a conservative, and worked on several Republican campaigns. Norby decided at the end of the election for Billy Tauzin III for Congress in the 3rd Congressional District, he was going to go into policy with this group of people. Unfortunately, they lost the race by 569 votes. Norby had no clue where he would go from there, but an array of natural disasters would soon point him in the right direction. Norby was at the Superdome the night before contraflow began for the evacuation for Hurricane Katrina. The same Superdome that he had no idea would soon house several New Orleans citizens that would have no place to go. Hurricane Katrina, Rita, Gustav, and Ike succeeded in frustrating Norby enough to run for office to fix the flooding issues that tormented his family and friends annually.
My brother, Lenny, who's never been involved in politics in his life, looked at me as we stood with floodwaters up to our shins that second time, and he just said, if you are ever going to run for office, you need to run now. He says, the people will be behind you. And he was right. And you go back and you look at all that stuff and you ask yourself, have I been successful? Or whether I succeeded or I failed at any of the things that I've tried. Since I got elected, we've pumped over $1 billion into hurricane protection in this area. And you know what? My house ain't gonna flood no more. And there are so many houses, in so many areas, in the low-lying parts of this parish that ain't gonna flood no more. And I have to think that I've done a good job. I have to think that I did what the people demanded that I do. I never put my personal politics in front of my people. I've always remembered where I've come from. I never ever let being the senator get to my head. I have no idea what the future holds for me. But one thing that I know is that I think I did my job.